Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the White Gold Corp Town Hall call. That's WGO on the TSX Venture and WHGOF on the OTC. Before we get started, just want to tell you this is Ventu is brought to you by New York-based O&M Partners. We're a marketing and communications company, and been highlighting companies in roadshows and town hall style webinars since 2002. You hope you enjoyed today's event. And if you have any questions, please just send them in through the chat function of the GoToWebinar control panel. We're now going to move on to our main attraction, which is Shawn Ryan, the Chief Technical Advisor of White Gold Corp. And Shawn, if you turn on your webcam. Shawn Ryan, Prospector of the Year award winner and the world's most successful and unorthodox prospector, has 20 years of experience prospecting gold in the Yukon. His prospecting and soil work led to the discovery of the White Gold, Coffee, and QV projects. That's more than 7.5 million ounces. He's also a developer of new exploration techniques from drones to drills. With his vast depth of experience in the Yukon, he's also the founder of Brian Wood Exploration, the company that, in fact, initiated the second Yukon gold rush in 2009. May 2011, a New York Times Magazine profile went so far as to christen Shawn the king of a new Yukon gold rush. Here we have Shawn again for the next gold rush. Let's have Shawn here tell you more about the good work that he and his experienced team are doing in the region. Thanks, Shawn, and turn on your webcam, Shawn, and you're on.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so today's talk is going to be on the white gold, but at the back end of the talk, I'm going to talk about this new Titan discovery. So, okay, let's see here. Here's our forward-looking statement, and as I say, I usually make a few of them. So the big, here we are. We're located basically in the Yukon, more specifically in the central Yukon, and this is just south of Dawson City, where the big Klondike gold rush happened in 1898. And what you can see on the first figure is the claim map from 2007. There's actually hardly anybody there. There was just a few of us in that part of the world. Then you can see the difference basically by 2019, but it all happened in 2011. Most of these big claim blocks got all staked up. So, so the idea is that, okay, and then, so kind of the takeaway here is there wasn't too many people exploring the Yukon. So here's our kind of timeline, and it gives you, we started this in 2016, and kind of how it came to be is I took all my projects, instead of splitting them up into 10 different juniors, I decided to put all my eggs in one basket. And this way, if you believe in, as I say, your own Kool-Aid, that there's got to be at least one discovery, high probability of 2, we won't be surprised at 3. And there is a good likelihood of 4 happening in this area over the next few years. So we took that package of projects and we brought it over to Agnico late in the fall of 2016. And the big thing is it was with a business plan. And the idea was, let's look at all the projects. We have so many projects. We had 17 at the time. So I said, why don't we put a little bit of money on each project? So that budget came up to 15 million over 3 years. So then the idea is that we're going to kiss, the analogy is kissing all the frogs and figuring out how many princesses we really have. And so, because we've learned from the past that when we were developing the Underworld discovery, I had found the coffee at the same time. But Underworld was so busy on the white that they actually never had time to go look at the coffee. So I said, in view of that, let's look at all these projects and figure out where all these princesses lie. So now, by May of 2000, so we started that project, but right away out of the gate in May in 2017, we actually talked to Agnico or Kinross, and we asked them if they'd like to sell us the original Golden Saddle, my original discovery. And they agreed to come in for 19.9% and some cash. And so then we took off from there. And over the next 2 years, two last summers, part of the end of 2017 when we got going, 2018, we come up with a new resource and we added another 500,000 ounces to it. So in this season, what you can see is we've now, this year we acquired kind of a third satellite deposit that was sitting out there called the VG. And that one had about 230,000 ounces. So then, so that's just across from the white. So it'll be like it's not part of the resource, but the idea is that whenever the white goes into production, this will be a satellite deposit. So, and then this year, we've expanded the Golden Saddle and Arc again. We went into there, drilling more holes to expand that resource. Then we made some new discoveries on the JP Ross, started drilling that Vertigo. And then this Titan discovery popped out of all this regional work. So here's our kind of share structure. And you could see that between management, they have about 18%. Kinross and Agnico both own 17.1, and the public float is sitting around 47. So this is where our project. This is like just a figure showing everything in orange is everything we own. Here's Dawson City. Here's the heart of the Klondike, basically the gold fields that we call it. It was 20 million ounces of placer gold found with nothing ever seen. So the area I'm going to be talking about is 75 kilometers. That's where this JP Ross is. So here's a blow up, and there you can see the JP Ross. Here you can see the Vertigo. Here's our new Titan discovery, and here's the white and the coffee locations, just to give you an idea where we're at. So the way we work is it's different from most juniors. Because we own 40% of the land, the district. What we're doing is we're putting this in kind of a pipeline of projects. It's a systematic exploration. So we don't fall in love with any one project, but the idea is that we do our initial soils, geophysics, trenching, geoprobing, and then if it's got merit, it moves into the next stage where basically we start doing this rab drilling or diamond drilling. And then if she still got legs, then it goes into the full-blown delineation drilling or diamond drilling. So it's kind of a step-by-step. And that's kind of the big thing here is we have so many projects that we don't have to just kind of beat one up. And that was the intent of this white gold, was to kind of systematically work them all. And if we actually make a bona fide discovery, we have the idea is usually we pay we spend about $500,000 on a project. And if it's got some legs and then we start drilling it, we'll drill it with, let's say, a rab. That's a lighter weight, inexpensive kind of drilling. It's an open hole rotary air blast system, but it's 30 cents on the dollar compared to diamond drilling. So the idea is we go and flush that out ahead. And then if we get some nice hits, like we did on this Titan discovery or the Vertigo last year, then we follow it up with a phase 2, and that becomes the diamond drilling program. And then if it continues on to have legs, the intent of the company was to spin out these assets into a new co. And then he who owns paper and white gold gets SpinCo paper. But the idea there is so that the majors, whether it's Agnico or Kinross, if they would like to now start dumping more money into the SpinCo, then we're not getting diluted as white gold shareholders. So that was the idea. And then if they wanted to buy that asset, they're not buying all of white gold. They're just buying that SpinCo. So this year we had a fairly aggressive program. So we had $13 million. We just come in just shy of that. We did 17,000 meters of diamond drilling. Between the Vertigo had about 10,000 meters of diamond drilling. The white had about, I think it was around 5,000 meters. And then I think we did some, the QV, I think that was mostly RAB. Then you could see that we had about 75 RAB holes altogether across the district. So the idea is that it's this pipeline of projects. So part of that pipeline of projects is this is our soil map, and you can see kind of all these targets that we've kissed, all in the brighter red. And so you can see how we're kind of working all the different targets. And that's kind of the systematic way. And soils, taking these, you know, we go down about 3 feet, get these nice piles of dirt, bag them up into these 1 pound samples, and then send them off. But these are kind of like lottery tickets, like lotto tickets as I call them, so pull tabs. And the idea is that this year we ran about 15,000 soils. That's roughly around $1 million worth of recce work. And out of that, we'll pop out some brand new targets. So they're in the pipeline for next year so that we can start trenching or probing or doing our geophysics, with the intent that we'll probably have that ready for, in 2 years, ready to RAB drill. So that's how we keep coming up with this consistent brand new targets every year, because it's a pipeline. So this is a Golden Saddle. For those who don't know it, this is where our resource was. Here's our open pit shell, where you can see where the pit shell is versus where the ore is going. So this part is going to be put into the underground potential. So what we're doing is, as you see this, the red background here on this upper figure is, these are all that's where the anomalous soils that we blocked out. And most of our resource is right here in this Golden Saddle up in here. So this year we poked a few more holes in the arc with the intent to increase that resource, because we actually had never really drilled it. Neither did Kinross or Underworld, mostly because we thought it was preg robbing. It had graphite in it, it had arsenic in it. So everybody was uncertain really what kind of ore it was, because it was different from the Golden Saddle. So we decided with our partners with Agnico to actually diamond drill it last year and actually get the core and send it to their lab, and so they could do some met work on it to see how good we could recover gold. And it ends up that we came back at around 85% recoverable with a little bit of pre-treatment. So now the gloves were off for us. Now we could actually start jumping into this style of the arc and heading over towards the Ryan's area and this part of the claim package in the soil anomaly, because nobody's really poked too many holes. But as you see, that's one of our bigger soil anomalies. Then we started outlining that. News started coming in last year, where we actually started hitting some in the Golden Saddle West. We started getting some nice numbers there. And the idea is that you can see where we hit 24 meters of almost 2 grams with 10 meters of almost 3. This year's drilling pulled out 25 of 1. So we're expanding that, and the idea is that eventually we could have a nice pit shell around there, and that'll be part of because it's only 700 meters away. So it'll be part of the ore. The next one we moved over, and that's one, the fun one, right? You know, this one's an interesting one. It's called the Ryan Surprise, because it was by one of my original showings. And it's about 2 kilometers from the Golden Saddle. So it's just on the next ridge over, and you can see this little inset map on the left here. And you can just see we just started poking that last year and this year. And like last year, we pulled up some 6 meters at 20 grams. This is what people want to see, or at least people like Agnico. Nice high grade. We got some 13 meters of 5. And then this year we poked 2 holes the back end of the season. Came up with 11 of 3 and or 2.6. And then we hit 1 hole. We got 30 on the same hole. It was 31 meters of 2+ grams. So that'll be an area that we're going to focus in on next year, definitely, because it'll give us some more ounces to put into this kitty. And the reality is the white is up to around 1.5 million ounces as of last year as a resource. Where we're heading, we poked, we're going to do an upgrade on our 43-101 resource this winter, and I'll probably come out at the end of Q1 on that one. And the idea is that we're hoping to push that maybe around 1.7. We still got to look at the numbers, but the real goal is to get this thing well past 2 million ounces. So, and that's what our partners like Agnico are kind of looking for, something in that category. So that's why this this Ryan surprise will be critical for part of that, getting us well past 2 million ounces. Now, here's some of the activity we did on the white property itself. So you can see here's the Golden Saddle. So you can see this, the yellow pins are where we drilled this year. And you can see here's our arc, and you can see how we drilled following this trend. And we still got quite a bit more work to be done here. And here's our, Ryan surprise that we worked on. And out of that, like we actually did, like we got another almost 4,500 soils, did a bunch of probing, so that gets it all ready. Did a bunch of ground geophysics that I didn't put in here. But then we ended up drilling 19 RAP holes based on our geophysics and probing and trenching. And this is where you can see all the targets we're covering. And you can see the grids in the back is the soils, they're new soils. And this is what we've been targeting now. And the idea is that, again, we went in, did our kind of magic or systematic exploration. And now those results are still yet to be talked about. So here's our QV project that we acquired. The white is sitting on this side of the river. The QV, or the VG zone, but we call it the QV property, is just on the other side of the river from the white discovery. And this was something we found back in 2011 and 12 with a company called Comstock. And so it's got a resource of about 230,000 ounces. And so we actually went and plugged 5 or 6 holes of RC. So, no, I think we did 10 holes of RC. That's what we did. So we're going to basically, again, those results are yet to come out, but we're trying to expand that resource also. So you can see we've got a few cards in play here. This is a project we're just throwing in. This is the Betty. The Betty is sitting just basically just east of the Coffee Creek project, or the Newmont Gold Corp project. And the Betty, just to give you an idea, was everybody's favorite project 3 years ago. Like, that's all everybody wanted to do was buy that one. And that's kind of what my model was I didn't want to let them, high grade out of the stable, which horse to take. So I kept that part of this white gold package, all the eggs in one basket. And you can see last year, we actually got 50 meters of over a gram, which included 9 meters or almost 10 of over 2. But the idea is that we hardly talk about this right now because we have so many other projects to talk about. But we'll be getting back to this next year, basically start kicking this up. But the idea is this method that we've been going at, kiss all the frogs, is starting to produce results. And like I say, we're not even talking about the best project everybody was really interested in a few years ago. But that one's still coming on stream. So we're going to talk a little bit about, we're going to walk into this JP Ross project. And this is in Henderson Creek. And this dredge used to be on Henderson. This is from Thistle, but they moved this in, I think, in the 60s, basically to Thistle. So they've been placer mining around here for over 100 years. Here's Robert Henderson. He was that's what they named the creek after. He was plugging in shafts in here basically for the last, before the Klondike Gold Rush. But then you have these kind of characters like this that all came up looking for the placer gold. So, and this is what I think we're finding on this JP Ross property. Like, it's in this Henderson Creek drainage area. And here's our new Vertigo Discovery right here. And you can see our big soil anomaly brewing on here. And but this is Henderson Creek. This is the one they've been mining for 100 years. And they're starting to mine up this way. So, like, this is not rocket science. The interesting part is, like, pretty well, if this was anywhere else on the planet, we would have found this already. But here we are. Welcome to the Yukon. Here's a known placer creek for 100 years, and nobody really worked the ridge above it. Here's another placer creek, and here's our new Vertigo discovery. So the idea is that, like, welcome to the Yukon. This is totally, like, this is a virgin country. So we took, again, we did over 13,000 soils. We really probed it and trenched it, and we poked 30 RAV holes. And these are the stars, is pretty well where we actually went in and did our RAV drilling. And this is where we did our diamond drilling on the Vertigo. So again, this pipeline of projects, lots of land, lots of good data to look at and follow up on. So this is the Vertigo Discovery down here, part of the JP Ross. And this is what got everybody going last year. We had grab samples from 100 grams to 300 grams. We actually drilled a hole that was 30 meters at 22 grams. That's actually ends up being a down dip hole. We were actually parallel the mineralization. But what you can see is 3 meters of almost 60 and 3 meters of 56. Fairly high grade consistency. So when we went in this year, this is the fence drilling that we've done over the Vertigo. And the big thing to pick out of here is, so that's what we went in there with the intent last year after some of these discovery holes, was to fence drill it to see if we could kind of get a handle on the geometry of the deposit and exactly the high grade, because RC or RAB, it's in 5-foot sections, but with diamond drilling, we could get it right down to, 1-foot sections or 2-foot. So the big thing to pick out of this is where these black arrows are, is the nature of the high grade, 1.75 meters at 20 grams. You got 0.75 meters of 51 grams, 0.7 at 36, and all the way to 0.4 of 141. So that's what we ended up coming up with. We've released 15 holes out of 50. So there's still 35 left to come for this area, the showing. And so, but really what we started understanding here was the nature of, these were 1 to 5 meter super high grade veins that had an alteration zone of 2 or 3 meters. So the idea is that this was the first time in the last 100 years that we're actually finding the sources of the Henderson Creek placer gold. So here's the top end of this moose horn. This is where the Vertigo Discovery is. So you can see how the land is quite gentle and rolling. So it's no big cliff faces here. This is what happened when we took the big 220 hoe in and started digging, and you can see these big float. You can see the vein sitting over here with some of the pieces floating down the hill. So when we're looking straight down, there it is, about a meter and a half, and you get this nice alteration zone on each side pulling in. So now the idea is to see, follow these things down. So we know we have about 5 or 6 of them now, and see, did they actually join up somewhere at depth? So now I'll talk about this Titan discovery. So I threw in a couple of different slideshows here. So I just gave this at a geoscience talk. And so here you're looking over our X-Men, and our Titan is over here in the discovery in the background. But the idea is that you can see how the hills are quite rolling. But yeah, the place got really hot there this summer, and we had quite a few fires blow up. But it's a nice country to work here. And the cool part about this Henderson Creek is we have roads everywhere going through this. So we found about at least 4 or 5 new showings this year within 50 meters of the road. So here's our Titan right along here. Here's Henderson Creek. And here's a bunch of our discoveries of our different showing areas that we're working on. Here's our Vertigo. So it's about 15 kilometers away, but it's quite close to the road, within a couple of kilometers. So I'm going to break you down the science of it. Like, what is the Titan? We don't quite know yet, but we're kind of getting an idea. But the idea is that here's our soils and geology map. And I won't get too complicated, but I'll show you patterns, and that's kind of what I work with. I'm just a prospector. I've been doing it for 25 years, but really what it's all about is pattern recognition. So here's the gold soil map. And you can see the different, basically, different numbers. So the idea is that these are the lower numbers. We start at around 90 percentile. So I just take all the data that we have and you do statistics on it. So I call it unbiased science, because it's the statistics that'll point you in the right direction. So here what you see is this northeast trending struck, or at least northeast trending gold anomaly, soil anomaly, and you have this northeast trending system. And here's where our holes that we poked in the Titan, and the discovery hole was this guy right here. And so now I'm going to show you kind of why the first hole missed and why we hit on the second hole and what do we think it might be. So the interesting part about this Titan was it's massive magnetite. So magnetite is pretty easy to spot, especially with the geophysics. And so here we have as a ground geophysics as a background, again with the soils. And the first thing you can see is that this oval shaped, and here's where the magnetite bodies are. We could see where, at least where the more richer magnetite zones. And so now when you start looking at these, the idea is that these are all represent Titan style targets. But this is a different, and I still think this is going to be really good. So that's why we can't really discount just because we hit it with a high magnetite. We know we have gold there, but there's going to be some nice structural prep here going on that'll actually, there's a high probability we got some nice gold there too. There's a forward-looking statement, if I heard one. So here's these magnetic features again. But the interesting part about this is when I line up and just add up how many meters, when you stack these end to end, how much distance can we get out of this guy? There's over almost a kilometer, almost 3,000 feet of linear magnetic features here to work with. So that's the intent for next summer, is we're probably going to go in, and we're still trying to figure out how we're going to do this, but we're definitely going to be starting to bring the diamond drill in here. Whether we poke 2 or 3 holes per target, it'll be something like that, because we'll walk into it calmly. You know, let's not go in full blast. Let's kind of do this systematic, because we have the whole next season to work this. So that was because we drilled this right at the end of the season. Now we'll have time on our side with this discovery, so we can drill it earlier on, wait for assays, come back in for a second round. So here's this cool geochemistry soil sampling, and what you see here is this nice northeast pattern and this nice north trending thing. And the gold that we're finding here is associated with copper. So having copper in your system, but you can see how that anomaly is covering, like this copper is scattered throughout this nice oval shape, but you definitely see these linear trends, and that's what's part of the key here. You use other geochemistry elements. This is bismuth. Again, you see this beautiful northeast trend, and again, you see this north trend. So, and again, the copper, or the gold is associated with copper and bismuth. And then of course it's magnetite, which is higher in iron. So you can see how this belt is lighting up here. And you can even see this nice linear trend in here. Even though it's off from this magnetic feature, we're still definitely got to go in to look at this. And again, you can see how this northeast trend is lighting up. I just threw in this is calcium, because we might be, like, we're not sure if this is skarn type yet. Like that could be one possibility with the magnetite. And so having the copper and bismuth, sometimes it's related to skarn action, and such as the high grade. But again, you can see where this limestone units are sitting, and you can see this big front sitting on the other side here. So anyways, these are kind of the different ways. And here's the government. They had a geology map, and this is where they mapped their limestone. So you can see it's a little bit more than what they just mapped. This is what it looked like inside, like our once we went and dug the Titan. And this is where they pulled that 100,000 parts per billion. Ends up it was 113 grams in soils. So when we ended up taking a little can dig, a little trencher, mini excavator, we could see, here's one of the contacts, but you could see this was all massive magnetite. So it was, so that's kind of what kicked basically in those, rocks 100 to 600 grams came from this area. So here we are before we even started digging. That was the original pit. But you could see when we went in a little bit further down the trend, right in the mag anomaly, you're just a couple of feet below surface. So that's where we would have soiled, and you could see this massive magnetite, like this is all decomposed. So And that's what's kind of interesting. We still haven't done the thin section samples on this yet, on the rocks yet, but from what we could see, the gold is, well, we're seeing lots of VG in here, but it's liberated also, because that's why we're getting such high soil assays. It's actually fallen out of the magnetite. This is what some of the hand specimens look like. So these were some of the rocks I kicked from 100 grams all the way up to 600 grams. So, but you can see this is pretty well, you know, almost massive magnetite here. So this is kind of how I'll show you some of the science, how we kind of went in to tackle this Titan, you know. So here's this IP survey that we do. This is a different IP survey. This is from the environment world. This is 3-meter electrodes, as you see. I just wanted to give you an idea of how it looks like in the bush. And we read with this receiver. But our resolution, because most IP surveys historically were done on 25 to 50 meter electrode spacings, but your cube of measurement is usually half of that. So if you're 50 meters, your resolution is 25 meter cubes. But at 5 meters, it would be 2.5 meter cubes. Hence, I could see very small structures coming up through the ground. And then we tried this other kind of cool, this is an old system called VLF, very low frequency for the submarine stations. But it's the idea is it's a one-man system, and this is the VLF here, and this is the magnetometer that he's got in front of him with a GPS above. And he just walks and takes readings every 5 to 10 meters. And then we take this cool program here that was designed out of Portugal, out of the university there, and they basically we could invert the data, and that's what's the kind of, this was a fairly big breakthrough from us from an exploration point of view, just because we were able to model the structure so good and so well cheaply and effectively with a one-man survey. So now we have about 3 or 4 of these guys that we could throw out of the helicopter, and they could cover roughly 3 to 6 kilometers a day, depending on the nature of the topography. So this is just to show you, here it is again, here's our Titan. And you can see that nice northeast trending soil anomaly. And here's our soils on top on a plan map looking down. And the idea is that you look under, and sure enough, you can see this structure. You can see which way it's dipping. So these are 2 different lines. So you can see from line to line as it's going up through the soils. So that's why now there's it's almost an extremely high probability that these soils are related to this crack. So now we actually know which way to drill when we come in here in the spring. And that's basically a breakthrough, because well, think about it, you could be sitting right here and drilling here and you'd miss that. So the idea is now we have a picture of where to drill and how to drill it. So this is here's a table I made, and this is an interesting one because the nature of this gold. So here's the gold grades coming through, and here's the meterage on this side. So the big thing that we're trying to figure out is what is actually, is it 6 meters at 72 grams? Is it 12 meters at 37? Where do you put the cutoff? Because we hit gold all the way down. And so some people were questioning, because it was an open rab hole, could there be cross-contamination, basically, because when you drill through this, you bring back the dirt through it. So we debugged this through the geophysics, and this is what I'll present. So now you can see that you're getting some nice hits. This background is the actual mag data that's called inverted. So this is showing you the magnetite body. So the interesting part is you could start to see this all the way down to the 60 meter mark, which is, if you use that calculation, forward-looking statements here, but 48 meters of just under 10 grams. So is it really that far? These are low-grade hits, but so that's why everybody liked this one to stop it at 2.5 grams. So that's at the 33 meter mark, and we get at basically the 39 meter mark, you get another 0.7 hit. So, but I believe it's part of the same unit, it's just lower grade. But that proof will be approved when we diamond drill this next year. So now I'm going to show you what the inversion looks like. So here's the geophysics, this mag, ground mag. And now when they invert it, you could actually see where we drill, and you can see where this magnetite body is. You can see where there's another one here, and you can see there's more magnetite probably in this section. And here's actually a cross section. I'll show you this one again. It's a long section, so it looks straight. It's going north-south. But you can see that here's the 60-meter mark. That it potentially makes sense that the ore, like that there is basically, that's part of the same system, like it's part of the same unit. And this is kind of the proof in the pudding. Here's the resistivity from the IP survey. So that's a different measurement because we were using mag on the other one. This is resistivity from the IP survey. And again, you can see this resistivity low unit sitting right in here. And there's the contact. There's the chargeability from the IP survey. What it does is it charges the particles. Again, it's a different science. And again, you can see this body of high chargeability that's basically related to this resistivity low area. And again, you can see this nice, you can see where the higher grade section was. Here's the VLF. Now VLF, this one, it's a different coupling. I would have liked a better one coming from the south. It's a whole other science, but again, you can see how this body is sitting here. And again, what we were trying to get is VLF to give us a dip, but you can see this kind of EM basically body in here. And the idea is that this is the way they drilled, and that's how we use this VLF again, but the VLF is picking up something here. So here's the long section just to show you again. What I did here is we were looking at it like this. Now I'll go north-south just to see what this pod looks like. And here you could get it again. So now we're looking across it. There's north that direction. And then you can see there's your, right down to your 60-meter zone. But you can see this zone continuing down at depth. And now you can see this other pod breaking out, like coming up. So it's kind of cool. And here's I just threw this for calcium from the research talk I gave, because this could be part of it's a limestone unit, and it could be part of what's going on here. So here's copper, and this is how we scrutinize our data. You use different elements. So again, what you're seeing here is this copper anomaly in the drill holes is associated right up to that 60-meter mark. And I put this down at depth because we're getting more gold kicks down here, lower grade. But I think it's going to be like, it's showing that there's different zones. But this is where our better grades, of course, were up in this top part. But again, here's resistivity. So you see how it worked perfectly on this contact. So that's for sure, that's a unit going on there. Chargeability, again, mimicking it perfectly. So when you get these kind of correlations, like these are quite, it's telling you there's something, like you can start believing in the science. So here's copper with the VLF again, showing you how it's lighting up on that zone. Then I threw some other elements, just again, tellurium. You can see how it's holding, but you can see this spike down at the bottom here. And that's kind of what I'm getting at. That's spiking with the gold. So I believe this is another lower grade zone down here. Again, lighten up with the resistivity, nice. So, these correlations are like proven, each element is proving each other. That there's something going on for sure down to the 60-meter mark, and there's a high probability down to the 80. Bismuth, again, it's correlating with our gold, and you can see it down here. You can see it at the contact again. So, yeah, this is kind of the way we try to explore. I call it unbiased, because she's basically dictating what she's finding here in Mother Nature. Here's all these moly hits, and again, I point down to this one because we're getting moly associated with the gold. So is this guy real down here? I think it is. It's lower grade, but the point is we're seeing it all the way down to there. It's different on these resistivity maps because it'll be a little bit different for why it's a different unit. But the mineralized moly is following the gold pretty well 1-to-1. So that's pretty well it from basically the talk of the Titan. But it's kind of like I say, it's the Yukon, the land of golden opportunity. Because like the reality is if this was anywhere else in Canada, we would have basically been we'd have been working this a long time ago. So it's so where are these grades? Like I say, we announced 6 meters of 72 up to here, you know, but you guys can do the math yourself. But like I say, when we dive and drill this next year, we'll get the hard rock in our hands, because RAB is chips. And so but from a geophysical standpoint of view, it looks like a nice target. It looks like it's going to depth here, at least down to the 60-meter mark here. So thank you.